You're on Afternoons here with Julie Lawrence, and I have Robert Connolly and Nick Drake in with me. Robert Connolly is the producer of Romulus, My Father, and Nick Drake is the screenwriter, and I'd like to welcome them to the program. So welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Nice to be here.
It's great to have you, and I feel very privileged, actually. I did see Romulus, My Father, and it was a beautiful movie. Can you tell us a little bit about screenwriting? I mean, how hard is that to do?
Well, with this book, it wasn't an easy adaptation because the book is a very different kind of animal. It's a memoir that moves across whole lifetimes, and it also has a whole dimension of philosophy to it, because Ray Gator is a very well-known philosopher. So
Yes.
There's a lot of consideration about the meaning of people's lives as well as telling the story of their lives. So it wasn't a kind of direct book to screen adaptation, but what I loved about it was that there are a number of things I loved about it. I loved the people, first of all.
Yes.
I thought the journey that these people went on from Central Europe after the war and fetching up in this landscape in Central Victoria was a really bold and amazing journey, and what they made of their lives once they came here was very moving. And then, of course, I think I recognised something about these people, because my own family is from Czechoslovakia.
Right.
And there's something about the kind of hard-working, strong-willed, and potentially slightly bonkers quality to some of the people from that part of the world, which I just knew from my own family background.
So you could really bring a piece of it a piece of yourself.
Oh
into the
yeah,
movie.
I needed to be able
Yeah.
to do that. Really, I needed to be able to empathise with what was going on emotionally for those characters.
Yes.
And then the big task really was to try and find the drama within the book. And, some very dramatic things do happen. So it was like we did have a story there which we could quarry from the book.
Yes.
And then the book is absolutely full of wonderful moments and images and landscapes which we could use.
Oh, it was wonderful. I know, just coming from a book to the screen, it must be very hard to pick out the bits that would most interest somebody.
I think that's true, but I think my main task was to work out the shape of the story for the film. And, one of the key things that we talked about was whether we were going to have a film that covered many years or a film that covered a few years.
Yes.
And the most important decision there was, were we going to have a young Ray, an older Ray, and a much older Ray? And we decided we weren't, because we thought about the films that had been made like that, and we didn't really like them so much.
Right.
We decided we were going to try and concentrate everything down so that we could have one actor playing Ray when he was 9. So he starts as a kind of really quite a young boy in a kind of innocence, and by the end of the movie he's been through an awful lot.
Yes.
And we were tremendously lucky to have found Cody Smith-McPhee, who is a genius.
Fantastic. He was just exceptional. Now, this
Yeah.
young boy, how old is he?
He's 9.
He
Oh,
is
actually,
9.
he turned 10 on the last day of the
Oh, he's in
shoot.
double figures,
Oh,
right?
wow.
He's in
But
double
finding
figures.
him, I mean, we knew when we had, Eric Banner and
Yes.
even Franca Portente, we had these wonderful actors playing the parents, but the film was only ever going to be as good as the performance from this little fella.
It's a big
And-
ask for a 9-year-old, isn't
Oh,
it?
yeah.
It really is. And he just pulled it off so beautifully.
Mm.
I mean, I just felt, and along with the people that I was with, I think we just felt his every encounter, his every journey. I mean, I was sitting there with goosebumps at some stages.
Yeah.
You could really feel his
Oh, that's great.
emotion.
Yeah.
And for a young screen actor, I mean, he's really obviously got a lot of potential in years to come.
He's a total natural, and he had to
Yeah.
be, because a lot happens to him,
Yeah.
and it's not easy, some of it, and he kind of works as a light bulb at the middle of the film. No matter how dark things are, he's always there, sort of very, very bright, and feeling that everything is possible in life.
Yeah. Well, what about Raymond Gator himself? I mean, how did he feel about the movie? Was he happy with the outcome?
He's really thrilled with it. He's seen it many times now, and he weeps through it every time.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a great boon for us that he really loves the film. If he hadn't done, I think we might have felt we'd failed in some way.
Yeah, well, that would be hard, Nick, because
Yeah.
especially for you being a screenwriter, because, I mean, you've got such expectations. I mean, are you telling this story the way that he wants it to
That's
be
right.
portrayed? Because it's
That's
his
right.
memoirs, isn't it?
That's right. I mean,
Yeah.
most movies take a book and they make what they want of it, but we couldn't do that in this case, because this is not a novel. This is people's lives.
That's right.
And that's what's wonderful about it, is it's true. And so the last thing we wanted to do was mess around with that and make up things which would be less interesting than what actually happened. And the more I got to know Ray, the more important this became to me. And so the first time I came out to Australia, which was after I'd written the first draft, kind of oddly, I went to stay with Ray, and he took me on a tour of all the places in the book. He took me to Frogmore Farmhouse, which is now a ruin, and in particular he took me to Maryborough Graveyard, where all the characters in the book are now buried.
Yeah.
So, I had this very strange experience for a writer. I stood at the graves of the characters I was going to have to write back into life. And believe me, once you've done that, it becomes a very different task, because you need to kind of, you want to make a great film, but you want to honour the truth of these people's memories
You
as
do.
well.
Yes, I should imagine it'd be quite some responsibility to hold on your shoulders.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I like that. I think
Yeah.
it's there's something about the tension between knowing the truth of what happened and trying to find a story that's going to work for an audience that may never have read the book. That's kind of a healthy thing, I think.
It is.
But it took a while with some of them. Ray said I got his mother quite quickly. But Hora, who is Ray's sort of surrogate father in the movie when Romulus is not around, I found quite hard to get him right. And it was only really the third or the fourth draft that Ray said, well, I think you've got him now.
It's a tremendous character too. They're just
Yeah.
remarkable.
Wonderful men.
Yeah, they just
Wonderful.
play. And the bond too with these new Australian families is just remarkable, isn't it? I mean, the fact that he was supporting the mum and supporting the brother, and it was just incredible the role that they played.
Yes, I agree. There's something about his huge generosity of heart. No matter what comes along to beat him about the head, in life, pretty tough things happen. He's got this kind of core of honour about him, and I found that very powerful and very moving.
And as far as the screenplay, I mean, obviously it's taken some time. I mean, what are we talking? Are we talking 2 years or more? I mean, how do these things evolve? How do evolve?
I first met Rob and Richard Roxburgh, who directed the movie, about 5 years ago,
Right.
to talk about the book. I read the book. They sent me the book and I read it and loved it. I fell in love with it the way people, I think, generally do. And so that was 5 years ago. But Richard Roxburgh read the book 3 years before that, so that's 8 years ago.
Okay.
So it's taken some time, but it's a vintage product. Things take time.
And obviously good things come to those who wait.
Indeed. Yeah.
Now, Robert, what about yourself? I mean, a producer, what part do you play in such a movie?
Well, it was a challenge from the word go when Richard brought the project to us, because every film has its own challenges, and this one was exactly what Nick said, because it was about real people.
Yes.
And I think once you identify what the biggest hurdle will be, you can focus your attention on that. And we needed to convince Raymond Gator to let us make it into a film. I mean, he'd had more requests. His agent told me he had more requests for the film rights to adapt it than any other book that she represented. And so we had to go and meet him and convince him. And we made this pact with him. It wasn't on the page. We didn't have a legal document, but we promised him that we'd make a film he'd be proud of.
A gentleman's agreement.
That's right. So it was slightly a terrifying undertaking and a deal to make with a moral philosopher. So I think we're greatly relieved that he liked it. But I think the big turning points were bringing Nick on as the screenwriter. That took a long time. Another writer had a go at it early on and not been able to write it. That was a big turning point. And the other big turning point was Eric Bana coming on board. And Eric's father is Croatian and his mother is German. So when he read the script, he immediately engaged with it. He found it incredibly moving. And when you're financing a film, when I first started making films, it used to be the thing that we had to bring foreign actors in to get the money.
Yes.
But now so many Australian actors are such huge stars that we can use these Australian actors like Eric to help us get these films made, which was wonderful.
Yeah, it is incredible. I just I marvel at his diversity, Eric Bana. I just think to myself, gee, you see him in Chopper Read, and then you see him in Romulus, My Father. I mean, it's just such a remarkable... I mean, he's just so adaptable, isn't he? As a
He's
character?
wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a wonderful actor.
Yeah.
And he's a wonderful man to work with too. And I believe the great performance we've got from young Cody is also largely due to the generosity that Eric brings to his work as an actor.
Yes.
So on set, he's a very generous actor, and he spent a lot of time giving space to Cody so that Cody could actually achieve that performance. I mean, it also helped that both Eric and Cody are both petrol heads.
Oh, okay.
He's not one of those little kids who's just obsessed with acting. It's always the challenge. Eric's American agent signed Cody up when he saw the film. So Cody's now got this big international career ahead.
That's fantastic.
And you always worry. You think he's only 9, And the great thing that Cody has is that he's a normal little boy. And he and Eric spent a lot of time off set talking about their respective cars.
Okay, that's good, isn't it? So I suppose he brought that normality to the set for the young fella, and I suppose Cody's probably going to be well grounded for that.
That's right. I think
yeah.
Cody comes from an acting family too. His sister Shanoa has just finished many years in Neighbours.
Oh, okay.
And his father's an actor too.
Okay, so he's come from some good stock.
That's right. They look after him.
Yeah, oh, wonderful. Now, what about out on location? How was that for you guys?
Cold. We filmed right into the heart of winter.
Right.
I mean, it
was that in Maryborough?
We filmed in Maryborough, Castlemaine, Malden, the Barringup area,
Okay.
and we filmed where
Was
the
there
actual...
Hell's Gap in there? Because the beautiful backdrop of the cliffs, it looks sort of a bit Grampians, Hall's Gap.
We didn't film in Hell's Gap,
Oh, okay,
actually,
yeah.
but I know that area from... We did film, our last film, $3, actually filmed down in the
Okay,
Grampians.
Yeah, because it sort of looked a little bit like that to me. I was wondering where it was.
Yeah, actually, there's a few cheats in the film. We had this problem where a lot of Australian films, because you shoot for a short period of time, they always feel like they're set in the same season.
Yep.
You know, this was a film that had to span summer, winter, autumn, spring. You know, it had to have this kind of sense of the years passing. And so we actually filmed about 4 times in the end, actually. We went there in summer with a very small crew so that we could film the wheat at full height. We went back and obviously we filmed the bulk of the shoot in winter. And we went back in the later part of the edit too to do some reshoots.
Okay.
So I think you can really feel it in the film, you know.
Yeah, the attention to detail was incredible too. I noticed that, like the clothing. I mean, everything was just to a T.
Yeah.
I mean, how hard was that to get all that right?
You know, we're very lucky that we had a production designer, Bob Cousins,
Right.
who he'd been responsible for the stage production of Tim Winton's Cloud Street
Okay.
that toured around the country. But it was only his second film. But he's an artist. He's got a great eye for detail, and we all went there and lived in the area where we made the film. So usually with a feature film, you'd base yourself in one of the major cities and just drive out for the shoot days.
Sure.
But we thought we should live there, and we found locals coming out of the woodwork and giving us a lot of things that helped us design the set so accurately.
Oh, that'd be tremendous. I suppose they're very proud. It's in their area, see, and they'll be sitting there saying, "Oh, look, you know, that's just down from where we live," and all that, wouldn't they? Yeah.
I think that's right. And when we had the world premiere in Castlemaine, there was a lot of that.
Very proud.
Yeah, a lot of extras.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful
Seeing
town,
themselves.
actually. I've got relatives up there, and it's just a gorgeous historic town.
It's a nice
and
place.
It's a
people
nice
are very
place.
warm down there. Yeah.
It was very touching for us too, because the cinema that we screened in was exactly the cinema that Romulus used to take Ray to when Ray was a kid
Oh, really?
to watch movies. And so you had this strange experience of sitting there with Ray, who's now 60, and a couple of other people who knew characters in the film, watching the film in the cinema that they all used to go to.
That is incredible,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's
yeah.
a great feeling. I suppose it must be very rewarding to see the final package and to be in such a fitting
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
Yeah, just tremendous. Well, as far as Australian movies goes, I mean, we've really set a precedent here, haven't we? It's quite high, and I mean, we're really sort of excelling. I think we're ready to tackle the world. How has it been sort of accepted in other places?
Well, I was at the Cannes Film Festival. I got
Yeah.
back a week ago, and we sold the film all over the world. It was
Wonderful.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's probably the most successful film our company's done. And I think that's largely due to, you know, how moving people find the story
Yeah.
and the beautiful landscape of it and the performances from the actors. It's sold into countries I've never sold films before. So,
Really?
you know, we're looking forward to releasing it throughout the world.
And what are some of those countries, Robert?
Well, we did, you know, huge sales into South American countries. I mean, you always sell the main countries that you'd imagine,
Yeah,
English-speaking
sure.
countries, European countries. But, you know, really big sales into, you know, Asian countries too. And it made me realise that I think there is something about the story which is a very universal story about people trying to make their life in a foreign place.
Yep.
Yeah, and how hard that is. And so people have responded to that rather than it being necessarily just a specific story.
Yeah.
Although, of course, it is one of the things we found when we had the world premiere is that it is a story that's very specific to provincial Victoria.
Yeah, it is very... I mean, I could sit there too thinking, gee, my dad could really relate to this. Or, you know, it is very picturesque of what you can imagine that your families or country families would have gone through in the 1950s and things like that. I think it's very fitting, and possibly a lot of people could relate. But I know I was very impressed with the movie anyway, and as I said earlier, the CinemaScope was just... It was just the photography was wonderful. And just that feeling of you really got to know... you know, Ray and the character, and you really felt for everyone, and it was just Yeah, just beautiful.
Great.
As far as suicide goes, though, was that a hard subject to tackle?
For Christina?
Yeah, for both. Even
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, it was hard. I mean, it's what happened,
Yes.
and it's very. Ray writes about it in the book, in a very restrained way, and so we tried to reflect that in the way we dealt with it in the film. But it's a reflection of how hard a woman like Christina would have found it
Yes.
to make sense of herself in that very rural place.
Yeah.
Because after all, she came from a European city. She was thought of herself as a very sophisticated girl.
Yes.
And yet she found herself in this landscape where she couldn't do anything and she didn't make any sense. And I imagine that might have been a not uncommon thing for women of that age and from that background to experience.
Yeah,
It must have been really tough.
It must have been too. And Mata too. He committed suicide.
Yes, he
didn't
did.
Yes,
He
yeah.
did. I mean, for reasons that are more kind of I think more intrinsic to
Yeah.
his despair over how he could love this woman who was so unknowable and so hard to pin down.
Yeah, it was just an incredible story, very enlightening anyway, and sort of gives you a real... it's very thought-provoking, I thought. I sort of come away with lots of thoughts, and it was just wonderful. I mean, probably a tad sad, you feel for Ray as a little boy. You think, oh, you just want to, as a mum, as a mum, you just want to nurture him. But certainly a remarkable story, and to see that Ray has gone on to be so successful is just tremendous, isn't it?
That's the great triumph of it.
It is,
yeah.
It really is, it's wonderful. Well, look, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon
A
on
pleasure.
the program.
Nice to talk to you.
It is lovely
Very
to
lovely
talk
to
to you,
talk to you.
certainly to get an insight into the movie's makings is wonderful.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're listening to Julie on Afternoons here on 94.7 The Pulse.